Rick,
Yeah.
how you doing?
Jeffrey, what's up, man? I
Life is amazing, it's magical, and here we are.
love it, man. Awesome to see you, meet you, hang out with you, hear more about inspiring breakthroughs. I'm very excited, man.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited to chat. It's going to be fun.
Now, heads up, I have you for a few hours, bro. So we're recording today. Give me your best. I'm looking forward to meeting you, hearing you, seeing your stuff because I don't normally have a window open like this, and I'm just giving it to you, bro. So that's today.
Oh, right on, man. This is going to be fun. We could run some laps here.
Let's do it. We can spread our wings and fly. Let's do the thing.
All right. That was you ever listen to Queen?
Of course. What am I,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
savage, Jeffrey? Of course I listen to Queen.
Yeah. So, what was that song? Freddie, spread your wings and fly away. You know that line?
hmm
Yeah, it was a great song too, right?
They have a lot of great songs. Also, Queen is such a unique band too. What I really enjoyed about Queen is, do you know why there's so much versatility in their music?
They were well-trained musicians.
Each member of the band all wrote different songs, and so they would just play each other's songs. So "We Will Rock You" was the drummer's song.
Oh, that's good. That makes total sense. Boom,
So yeah,
boom,
it
boom.
starts off with just the drum piece, and like the
Right.
whole entire song, that was the drummer wrote his song, and then they would have the guitarist write their song. That's why their music, there was almost not a lot of commonalities between certain songs because you're like, this is so totally different than "We Are the Champions." This is so totally different, like because each member would write the song. So very
That
cool stuff with that. That was neat. That Freddie was like, yeah, let's do your song.
that's brilliant. You know that he had some malformed teeth in his mouth, right? And so and nor which normally people would have had taken out and because it was an issue.
Mhm.
And so, but he said no, because I believe, it was just his belief, it may or may not have been true, but he said, I believe that that is the cause of my music, my sound.
Maybe. Listen, you don't want
My,
to. Why risk it?
right. So yeah, okay, I love it. I get a sense you play music.
I'm not I'm not like stage performer, but we used to rock a lot more, so I am proficient enough to jam on guitar, bass, and drums in the bands I played with. I played the bass the most, so like I
Hmm.
did love playing bass most. But it's good enough when you're in a band with guys or you goof around with guys. We just take turns playing each other's instruments, so it's like my turn to drum, and so I'm good enough to jam, but not I'm not going on stage anytime soon. Although I do want to get another drum set because I got my guitars and I gave my bass to my daughter. I'm like, I hardly jam with anybody anymore.
Nice. I play guitar.
Yeah,
It's interesting. I've had a challenge playing guitar and singing.
everyone
Uh,
does. It's a
yeah.
tough. It's a dual skill.
Mm, what I found actually helped me a lot. I'm not saying I'm good, but it did help me a lot was giving myself permission.
Really, I'm interested to
Yeah.
hear how giving yourself permission works.
Yeah. So I mean, actually, we could drop in because a lot of this is all interwoven. Because
We're already in, brother. They can hear Freddie Mercury stuff and then jump in. We'll be us, man.
all right,
Authenticity is beautiful. We're just gonna be
I
us.
love it. That's what I'm all about. So yeah, I realized that there was a part of me, and even I just said it, part of me that believed that I couldn't do that.
hmm
And so I was literally creating that because beliefs create actions, which create behavior, which create your reality. So I was holding back. And so when I just gave myself complete freedom to sing while I was playing, it just became an experience as opposed to this constriction around it. Um,
Were you able to appreciate just the moment of it instead of the result that you were trying to get?
well, here's the funny thing. So
Mhm.
I like to say, not a lot of people have heard me say it, so here this is the first time I'm publicly saying it,
Ooh.
is I live for the aha moment.
hmm
So the aha moment is it's being fully present in the birth of an idea, the birth of a when a synapse connects, right? So that's an improv. That's when you disappear into a creative process. That's when you're in flow. That's when you're deeply connected in communication and connection. That's life, basically, I believe. And interestingly enough, the aha moment that occurs for me is when I'm working with clients and that synapse connects, I can literally see it, right? Because I
You can
don't,
feel it.
I don't teach, I don't push information. I create an environment where people discover their greatness and step into it.
Well, all good coaches do it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's been intuitive for me. I didn't go to coach school or anything like that. I guess on some level I did go to coach school because I worked on myself a lot and then uncovered my innate talents and also had a lot of angels in my path along the way. And some of them I was able to hear, and some planted seeds on cement that later softened and was able to bloom.
That's tough. So you went to the school of hard knocks.
Yeah. I went to the school of life. Yeah, I mean I do have I do experience something. There was a great quote that I saw, I think I read it ages ago, but it was by an uber successful financial person. And he said, you know what? I learn a lot, but unfortunately, most of the things I learned the hard way.
Yeah, well, there's another version of it too. It was Abraham Lincoln who said, "I learned something from everybody, most of the time, what not to do."
Mm. Yeah, it's experience is a great teacher.
Can be.
And isn't that what we're here for, right? To experience life?
Yeah, that's definitely one part of it for sure. That's definitely a
Mhm.
big part. I think that one of the things I'm going to get into, and I think I'm getting a sense of which type of coach you are, is there's mastery that we achieve in different areas, and like the ultimate mastery is why you have Buddhist monks sitting on top of a mountain for 60 years trying to contemplate, balance in life. But with the different warrior types that I meet, especially coaching world, you got your mindset side. This is the mentally part. The how do I strategize? What's the thoughts? Read more books, listen to the podcast, get more information. I learn. Strategize those people. Then you've got your body side. This is the what are you gonna do about it? How are you gonna handle it? Do you persevere? Do you quit? Keep going. Do you challenge? Do you not challenge? What are you gonna do about it? This is the action aspect. This is the warrior side. This is where I work. Then you've got your heart side. These are the guys that can you feel, your intuition, your instinct, the presence, the connection. Do you have this part? How are you going through the emotions? Then you got your
Mhm.
spiritual side, and this is the can you catch the blessings? Do you feel the purpose? Are you going through the this is your meat suit and inside of here is your soul? And are you nurturing and feeding this part? Are you feeling through the part of you that is meant to be bigger than what it is that this meat suit allows? When you say I have angels in my way, angels in my path, it's like that's part of like the spirit side is connecting to something greater than myself.
For sure. I mean, I think that the more that you awaken and the more that you remove the programming, which is the process of awakening, I think that children arrive wide-eyed and ready to experience and awakened without prejudice and without structures that are given them and dropped into them. They're just living beings, living spirits, and some people have that programmed out of them, and then they were able to scrape that back and get back to their origination. And some people continue on, and that's no big deal either way. But I believe that we are humans having or spirits having a human experience.
Hmm.
Right. And I also believe part of that connection to our soul is by having a relationship to our emotional state and what our emotions and our intuition, which connects us to that spirit, is. And without having a good relationship, meaning healing the trauma and meaning understanding how to manage our emotions, without that, then it goes from blinkers and directions, which is what in information, which is what emotions are, to actually they're driving the car, and they're signals, they're not the driver, and that's the big difference. And some people get lost in that, and so
Very
that's a
well.
piece. that's a piece of it too. But I also believe that, which is interesting, we are traveling in meat antennas.
Yeah.
So it's a funny way of saying that, we're always sending and receiving information, which we are, right? Even over this internet, or if I was standing here, I would probably feel somebody who walked into the room before I heard them, before I saw them, out of any periphery. We've all had that experience. We've all had that moment of, we get somebody's vibe before they open their mouth.
Mhm.
We know, is this a friend? Is this a lover? Is this, somebody that's interesting? Is this somebody that's dangerous? We get that vibe, and then the first words, start to confirm that. And, based on our intents, who we are and how clear we are, and if it's a business relationship or something we need to continue, then we either pass through or we do what we need to do, and that becomes part of the adventure.
Yeah, definitely. And like I can see where you're coming from on this one. If I had to guess, I feel like you're more spirit side. You're more spirit heart side,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
very necessary because it's good. Like I said, I'm mind body side, the yin
Mm,
and the yang. This is where like you need all of them. You
for sure.
can't do it without them. But how do I find the master in this area? And finding the mastery of you, like you got to work on soul side, you got to
Right,
work on spirit, you got to work on that because that's who we are in there. But you
right,
also got to have the emotional connection to it. I'll teach you those pieces. And
right.
all warrior types are needed. There's not like you can't do it without all of them. Like you can get to a certain point, but you're going to hit a wall. Like there's a
Mhm.
glass ceiling for if you're trying to do it without heart, or you're trying to do it without spirit, or you're trying to do it without action, trying to do it without thinking. You're going to hit a wall at some point. You can only go so far, and so that's why like each level requires mastery, but every new level brings a new devil. There's a whole new fight. And
Right.
so this is where it's like cool to be able to talk to somebody who's like, you're on the other side of the spectrum from me, but all are needed.
Oh, for
So
sure.
I can't wait to hear more. Okay. I need to
Yes.
hear some more Davis stuff. I need some more like, okay, if we're going spirit side, we're going heart side. What is like, all right, here's how we do this. What tips could you give, or how could you say like this is how I showcase my mastery?
Sure. So it's fascinating what you just said because of several things. One is, I don't necessarily. I mean, I definitely align with spirit side, and I also see people who are solely spirit side and marketing themselves. There's a lot of ungroundedness in that. And the secret. But most people miss what the secret is, and the secret is not really a secret. It's the law of attraction actually has it in the word action, right? Action is in the law of attraction. But people miss that part. They're like, oh, I'm just going to think it, which is important because again, thoughts create actions, create beliefs, and that's where we go. And I also believe that our mindset is super important. Setting intention, right? What do you want to create? Because that's where you start, right? Where you point your aim from here. If this is my point of origination and I'm only shooting 6 inches, then I can be kind of off, but our trajectory is actually a long timeline. So if I'm not relatively accurate or able to, with an open mind, do a course similar to sailing, which is tack with the wind, right? So instead of thinking I'm just going to go straight, which is a fixed mindset, instead of a growth mindset, which is, okay, I've got a little information here, so I'm going to go left with the wind here and then a little bit right. And there's nothing wrong with that because it's all part of the input. And I believe the growth mindset and input, and looking at things as information, not right or wrong. And I think that, a great tool for connection with people and not being triggered is to try to say this one thing when somebody says something and just incorporate it into your response, into your vocabulary, which is, that's interesting, right? Instead of, oh, that's bad or that's good, because that places you into a camp where you can't really listen to the information. And it actually is information. You may not agree with it, but it is interesting that somebody has a different point of view. And guess what? There might be a piece of that different point of view that you can learn, or what happens to everybody if we admit it is many times we have a fixed point of view, and down the road, we're like, yeah, I learned better than that. I mean, like even humanity at a certain point was like, oh, bloodletting. Um, and I'm sure down the road we'll be like, oh, this procedure we used to do, that's not so good. So, it's important to ask questions. I also think that, society's lost a little bit of that. The ability to ask questions and have an open dialogue and connect. And I think connection is super important. It feeds our soul, it feeds our heart, it feeds our learning, and it feeds our adventure here on this planet.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's cool to hear that. I was gonna joke around and be like, "That's interesting. That's interesting." And use your thing. Well, that's interesting, Jeffrey Davis. Interesting. Like, no, I think it's a good tool. I love these kind of tools too. To be able to say, listen, I'm trying to connect with you without judgment. I'm trying to connect without, blame and shame or guilt. I'm trying to connect with you by going, well, it's interesting to hear where you're coming from. And it
Right,
applies curiosity instead of judgment. It applies, I'm
right.
trying to absorb versus reject. And I like that.
Exactly.
That's good.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
also like that you said the law of attraction has action. This is your warrior talk, bro. I'm with you there.
Yeah,
What are you gonna do? How are we gonna handle it? Are we gonna go through, or are we gonna just talk about it? But I think that
right,
you're right. People very so commonly misunderstand the law of attraction, law of vibration, or even prayer. They mix it all up. They think like, well, I prayed, but I think I'm gonna go because I go prayer side, and so my spirit side goes more, prayer side. And I go Christian, not religion. I
hmm
read Jesus. That boy was a badass. Like Jesus was no joke. He pissed off everybody. Like, don't
right,
get it wrong that he was just like, everybody be happy. Jesus pissed off everyone, broke
for
all
sure.
the
They,
rules. He was a
they killed
gangster.
him. They
The
killed
church,
him.
the church killed Jesus. So you can't go, you
Yeah,
didn't go to church, you're bad. Like the church killed Jesus. So
yeah,
as a Christian, I'm like, let's break the rules. Let's push the boundaries. Let's do as Christ did. Let's
yeah,
challenge everything. In
yeah.
which case, I like that law of attraction is action. Or if I'm sitting here waiting for prayer, like it's supposed to be like, God, please put money in my account. Just give me a deposit. I just need you to deposit money in my account, please. Like God doesn't give you things the way that you want. He gives you it the way you need. And so
Right,
this is why you hear people say the thing like, don't pray for patience. You're gonna get some shit that pisses you off. Like you're gonna get a thing that tests your patience. That way you can practice patience. Well, I
right,
messed around too, did the same thing. I'm like, God, I read Solomon. He said, pray for wisdom and pray for the discernment for justice. I'm like, please give me some Solomon stuff. He's like, oh, you want to learn? Well, what is the fastest way you learn, Jeff? Is it from winning or from getting your ass kicked?
sure. I just go by Jeffrey, and
Oh,
I
Jeffrey.
usually, well, I'd like to say so here is another trick that I've gotten is, so
Okay.
I decided a while back, I don't want to get my ass kicked all the time. So I believe that the universe is always communicating with us. And there's two pieces of this. The first, I'll come back to the second one, but the first one is, if you're listening, then the answers are already there. Because what happens is, and that combines your intuition and just your awareness, right? So what happens is we will hear some information, oh, you should do this. I mean, many times we're not caught unaware. We know the answer. It's just we'll do something else because the answer, doesn't make sense to us at the time until we do it, and then later it does. Or it seems scary, or it's too empowering, right? So when we avoid it, then later on we're like, I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I, just did it anyway. I should have listened to myself, right? So, or we will become confused. And I think confusion is a result of our brain arguing with our intuition, our knowing, right? We know what the answer is, but we don't want to hear it. So our intellect steps in and says, well, you can't do that. That doesn't make any sense. Why would I do that? I'm not going to do that. That's kind of scary. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. And then all of a sudden your knowing is knowing. So that's where the confusion is, because you're arguing with the knowing.
I like it. This is funny because I see you spirit. This is soul side. This is all soul talk. And so some people are like, what the hell are you talking about? And some people are like, exactly. Yes. Like it's really cool to hear when you hear like the other sides. And so I hear you versus the no, and almost the way I took that is like no versus trust yourself. Like, can you trust what you know? Can you go
Right.
with without a cognitive dissonance where you know and add the word but, and then fill in whatever you want afterwards. Like, I know that's right, but I'm gonna do this anyways. Like that's where
Right.
people run into their own things on this one. But the fear and avoidance and all of these pieces, even the confusion, I'm going to circle all of that back into like, well, I don't want that. I want the law of attraction. I want that to just be not like that, or I
Mm.
want the prayer to just work how it is. Well, I'm gonna ask the question again: how do you learn faster from winning or losing?
Right. So to answer, I started to answer that question and I was giving this piece. So what I did was I said, I don't want the hard lessons. So I started to pay attention if I heard or saw different ways of communicating some information. I was like, I'm not going to argue and I'm not going to wait for the second or third one because the fourth one is going to be the hard lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So I pivot really quickly. So I probably missed a lot of hard lessons. I've gotten a lot of them. And I've learned a lot. They all, here's the other thing about the hard lessons. They make you stronger. They
Mm-hmm.
make you wiser. It's like going to a soul gym, right? That you discover who you are in that process. You're like, wow, I never knew I could do that. So for instance, here, let me take a small example. So when I went through my divorce, I talk sometimes about how my divorce made me a better man. It's kind of a journey through depression to the other side. And I believe that whenever something happens, you have an opportunity to either become bitter or better, your choice, right? So that's with anything. So it's our perspective that makes it so. Otherwise, it's just an event that we have yet to assign any meaning to. So one thing that I learned from this that I didn't know before, which was that the love, nobody can give you love. So when somebody disappears, you don't lose love. What happens is they can behave lovingly towards you, and you can let that stimulate a loving feeling inside you and receive it or not. But that's your choice. And they can also love you in ways that you have never loved yourself, and that can feel really good. And when they're gone, you're like, oh, instead of taking that lesson, wow, it's like I never loved myself that way before. So thank you for teaching me a way that I was not loving myself properly or how I could love myself better. But I'm the one that's creating the love that I experience. And with that knowledge, you can create more and more and more. There's no limit on how much you can love yourself. And when it's overflowing, it makes an impact on the world and on everybody around you, and you behave differently. And now, love is, it's interesting. So many people have so many different definitions of love, and we live, I believe, in a love-starved world, where if you're kind to somebody, just from a place of love, it may be misinterpreted as, oh, you're hitting on me, or da, da, da. It's like I'm actually just a kind person who loves people. And that right there, behavior is not as common because most people are used to an agenda, something behind it. And where I grew up in my family, I say, and I love my family, and they're wonderful, and they love me, and we had a good experience. And so I say that we had what I call a love club. So there's 8 billion people on the planet, but you had to be close to somebody for a certain amount of time before you could love them. They had to do things where you could trust them so that you could love them. There was no loving humanity and people and just being full of love. There were very specific assignments of I love you, I love you. Not sure if I can love you right there. No, definitely don't love you. It's like, so it was very different. And, I'm not judging it. I'm just saying my interpretation and my experience of love is very different now. And I think that makes a huge difference in my experience and the feedback that I've gotten from the universe and people around me since I've shifted my behavior, shifted my outlook, opened my heart differently. It's been very different. It's been very different. I had it involved a lot of healing on my end, an integration of shadows on my end, and it's so fascinating. So I went from, I mean, I don't know if this is your experience, this would be fun to hear. So I found that I had lived a life as a man of having cried a handful of times. You know, first breakup, somebody close to me died, you know, puppy, or like maybe 5 times, 6 times, you know, not a lot. And when I started really integrating and stepping into my experience, my heart just cracked open, and the heart that I had held down in its expression, and because your heart just wants to be open, right? It just wants to be open. So I kind of held it under. I'd been waterboarding my heart, for want of a better phrase, but certainly a visualization of it, keeping it down low and unexpressed. And so when I gave it freedom and air and opportunity, it was just like this ocean of tears just flowed out, and I was totally fine with it. It just flowed out for weeks and weeks and weeks. Just whenever it flowed out, I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I'm driving down the road. I pull up to a red light in LA, and there's tears coming down my eye. And I look to the guy next to me, and he's a knuckle deep in his nose. And I'm like, well, I won't tell if you won't tell. And I drive off, and it's just like we're just. I was like, and it occurred to me, even my approach to other people was like, if somebody was crying, I was like, are you okay? You all right? Do you need anything? Trying to fix it like there was a problem. And what's interesting is if they were laughing, which is also an expression of an emotion, I would have been like, are you okay? Do you need me to fix anything? Is that too much laughter, too much fun, too much joy? I mean, so it was just interesting that there was one emotion that was like, whoa, something's broken. There's a problem there. Instead of just, because on the other side of the release of an emotion is peace and joy, right? So it was just a fascinating experience. I know I've just kind of rambled on answer to your question, but that's okay. That's where we're at.
I gotta let you go, man. Listen, I don't know where you're gonna go. Let's go.
All right.
I'm gonna try and paraphrase, and so this way I can see how well I was getting. First, I'm going to start off. Do you know what my first book is? Everything is a choice. That's my first book that I wrote. And so it gets into like you get to choose how you handle everything. So when you started getting into bitter or better, and you started getting into the different ways of like you get to choose how you handle this. You get to choose if you receive or block love. You get to choose. Like my first book is all about this. So I'm right there with you, like completely. Also though, I noticed, and I'm revising it because there's 3 chapters in there that I could kick the shit out of my own book right now. So I'm gonna be releasing a
Awesome.
new version of it because I'm like, this is now that I've been in the trenches for this long, this needs to
Sure.
be updated. This is missing too many key parts. One of the main ones that I had like only like a 1 page thing on, but now it could probably be an entire book, was the value of the skill, and I use this like intentionally, the skill of awareness.
Hmm.
Do you see it? Like, if you do not see it, you cannot make a choice you do not understand or don't even know exists.
Right.
So if you don't
Well,
have awareness, all the stuff that you were just talking about, awareness, awareness, awareness.
mm,
If I'm going to paraphrase, I feel like the answer to what teaches you faster, winning or losing, you said the hard lessons are where I definitely had the most growth, if I understood where you're coming from.
sure, for sure.
It's when you go through the tough stuff. It's the losing gives you wisdom. I learned way faster going through tough stuff than I did when everything was peaceful and beautiful.
Well, so I agree with you. And you have to be open and curious to get that gold,
That's awareness.
right?
If you don't have the awareness of like I should be looking for something, you won't be looking.
For sure. And if you don't have that awareness, you're most likely going to take the turn that takes you into bitterness.
Well, you're going to go to the only place you know, because if you have blinders on, I won't be looking left or right. I'll be missing all the paths that I could have taken because I wasn't even looking for them.
Right.
It doesn't
Yeah.
mean they don't exist. It just means I wasn't looking that direction. And so often when I'm working with people and they're living their life with only what they know and their belief systems that they have, they're like, I don't have the thing. I don't have it. And I'm like, let's focus on blinders. And they're like, how is that going to get me what I want? I'm like, just let's do it. And we move one blinder and they're like, hey, it's right here. I was like, it was next to you the whole entire time.
Right.
I just needed you to change your awareness because it wasn't that what you had didn't exist. It's just it was right next to you, but you couldn't see. So a blind spot.
Right.
And so it's not that they don't have the ability. It's just I had a blocker on and I couldn't see it through the obstacle. Fair enough.
Right.
So I'm with you. Awareness, number one, it's the first tool we get. It's the first tool we practice. It's the first skill. And we practice it throughout everything. Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see it? If you don't see it, you can't choose. If you're not open to it, you can't make a decision. You can't do anything if you don't know. So
Right.
I'm with you there. I'm with you. The other part too is how do you know yourself? You said to fall in love with yourself and other people love you. There's a quote that I live by, and I use this especially when I go through map training, when I use my tools that I've built. One of them, I call it the Epictetus compass.
Hmm.
And what I mean by this is there's a quote from Epictetus over 2,000 years ago. I'm going to change it because it's it's all very back then. It's like circumstances do not your circumstances don't create a man, or you are not a man if it's all man, 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 right? Well, let's just do person, okay? Your circumstances do not define a person; they reveal you to yourself. That's the PC version of it. What's
Right.
happening is not who you are. You're not your job. You're not your marriage. You're not your thing you're doing. You're not that. No, the way you handle, the way you do things reveals who you are to yourself. Did you
For
get
sure.
pissed off? Did you get shitty? Did you shut them out? Did you kill the relationship? Did you burn it all down? Like how you handle things should reveal to you who you really are. Now, if
Right.
you're living in a world of justifications to keep your blinders strong and like, well, I wouldn't have to if they didn't do that. Like, if you're doing that kind of thing, well, then you're revealing to yourself that A, you do not follow the golden rule and you do not live by a standard that you would be okay with being treated like. And B,
Right.
you're a very, very good liar.
Well, and C, I would say you don't actually stand for anything because without you don't like what do you stand for? You stand for reacting to whatever somebody gives you.
Stand for protecting myself by telling
Right.
myself whatever story I want.
Right. And I think actually you bring up a great point. I think the two most important questions that anybody can ask themselves is who am I and what am I here to do?
Oh,
So
we're
who am I?
getting esoteric now. Now we're going to go deep. Okay.
Right. But I mean, you were basically saying that. So who am I? The first answer everybody, comes to is, I'm a business guy or I'm a father, which is a job title or a responsibility, but like
What you
who are
do.
like dig down into that, like tell me, like who are you, what do you stand for, like what's your values, and not the values that you espouse but the values that show up in the actions and the
Mhm.
reactions, or if you've been able to create a little space and awareness, the response, not the reactions.
Correct. Whenever I do value training, it takes us 5 weeks of just do you know who you are? Know thyself. It's five
Right.
weeks of training in that. And it's really fun, but it's like hard because people are like, damn, my entire belief system is corrupted here. Like, as
Yeah.
soon as you start digging in, is this me? Is this me? Here's another funny thing. When I do values training, almost nobody ever gets it right. It's usually they put what they want, not what their
Oh yeah,
values
yeah.
are. So I agree with you. We're like, my values are faith and family. And we're like, is it? Let's go ahead and go through how you handle life and how you handle situations. Very rarely do I think it's faith and family. It turns out it's collaboration and growth, or it's service and respect. Like whatever your things may be. And
Yeah.
don't get me started with respect. I take trust, I take love, I take freedom. I take those off the list. Those are givens. You can't have a relationship without trust. You can't even tell me what the freak love is, which we'll get to in a second. And then like respect, I do an entire training on the definition of respect because every man is like, it's in my top five. And I'm like, great, what is it? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know
Well,
how to
it's
explain it.
It's so interesting too because I believe that I've heard it so said so many times. I almost feel like it's respect is being used in this as a velvet hammer in the same way that offended is these days. Well, they're not showing respect. It's like, what's respect for you is not respect for somebody else. And just because you say it's respect and they're actually acting authentically and true, and you're offended or you can't handle the truth, or, there's all kinds of things down there. But yeah, we're both aligned on personal responsibility and experience. I see that.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna hit you with some fun ones today. Let's answer the hard questions. I think people are like, all right, Jeff Reeves mastery. I want to see what his side is. Please, I wrote down a couple of the words you used for it, but people try to say they know what love is. But
Mhm.
let's say like I never heard of it before, and Jeffrey, I want to do it. I
Sure.
want to do it. What is it? How do I do it? Please tell me so I can do it too. I want it. What is love? How do I do it?
Sure, it's fascinating because I used to coach relationships, and relationships are still a big piece of everything that I do. And it all starts with, personal relationship, because it's the prism through which you look at everything. And I would start and talk to a room and be like, okay, so everybody either write down, or sometimes I'd have them do it verbally. Tell me what love is. And you would have a room full of 50 people and you'd have 50 different definitions of love.
Correct.
Some of them completely different, right? If you talk to me when I was back in the Love Club, it was very different than it is now. And what I understood in this, journey of mine was the impact of love. When I walk into a room, or when anybody walks into a room, and you're in that room with somebody who loves themselves, who accepts themselves fully, you can feel your nervous system drop. You literally can feel the impact on you from being in their presence, because we as humans co-regulate each other, right? Our emotions are contagious. So whether we're aware of it or not, sometimes we feel somebody else's emotion and we think it's ours, or we actually even subconsciously mimic their emotional expressions. So it is contagious. And when we walk into a room, we can feel that peace of acceptance, of integration, and where somebody can be with you in a state of curiosity, not judging you. That doesn't mean because they're loving that they're going to be around for you to abuse or do things like that. That's actually not very loving to themselves, right? So love can have limits in terms of how, it wants to be treated, right? So there's a lot of dimensions to it, but I think the base of it is about acceptance. You can also accept the fact that somebody is just at a place where they're not healed, and they're not actually in a space where you can be in the same place with them, right? And you can accept that, and you can interact on the exit, whether it's verbally or whatever. You actually do make a difference in every word that you say to somebody. Everything that you do makes a huge difference. So, for instance, I mean, I've been shocked by how energy or words or behavior has rippled down the line. So here's two quick examples. Once I was in Bali, and I was at this co-working space. It was just two of us. It was a Saturday afternoon. And this woman was upset. So I talked to her, and I was like, well, what's going on? And so we had a heart-to-heart conversation, and I gave her a couple things that helped her come to a place of peace, change her perspective a little bit, and be more present in the experience. And fast forward a month later, and I'm back at the same place, and I'm coming out of the conference room, and she's walking in. And I'm like, hey, how are you? And this woman is right behind her, and the original woman that I was talking to her is standing here, and behind her shoulder, I can see the woman behind her going, is that him? Is that him? Is that him? And she's like bouncing up and back. And she's like, yeah, that's him. She's like, oh my God, she told me what you said to her because I was having the same problem. And oh my God, it changed my life. It was like so amazing. And I was like, wow, because I didn't think about it. I was just sharing something. right? And so another time, I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of years after this occurrence. So every year, a kind of a word or a phrase or an energy shows up. It's been happening for 15 years in my life. And I don't think about it all the time, but it becomes kind of a teaching tool or experience that I experience throughout the year. And I learn a ton from it. And eventually it integrates, it just kind of drops into my subconscious and becomes a part of my being. So I connected with a friend of mine after a couple of years, and we were chatting, and he said, "Yeah, I what's your word this year?" And I forget what it was at the time. He's like, "You know what? I remember the year that you told me you were doing the year of yes." He's like, "I decided to do it too." And I was like, "You did?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "It was the most amazing year of my life." I was like, "Wow." I mean, you don't know. So you can impact people just with a short phrase, your energy, whatever, positively or negatively, right? So it's important if you want to make a difference in the world to decide what kind of difference it is and go back to what we were just saying before, who am I and what am I here to do? I personally, back to kind of circle around on your answer and the answer to your question, I believe I'm here to leave a legacy of love. I believe that my presence, my energy, and my commitment is to be in a space where the impact of that feels loving and comes from a place of love. So that was a long-winded answer for you.
All right, I'm gonna try and see if I can follow the steps because it's you're like this is the answer. This is what love is.
Um,
All right, so I'm gonna go through the pieces here, and I'm gonna try and see if I can follow the steps. It's a personal relationship thing. It's got an impact that's gonna make a difference in people's lives, and so there's impact. It's a contagious feeling. So there's if I'm around people, there's contagiousness, so they'll feel it or I'll feel it. There's a thing. There's time that you spend with people uh, to do it. There's things that we do with each other to do it. But it's also situational. Sometimes it's there, and sometimes there's a space there that needs to be healed. So sometimes it's good, and then sometimes you can't do that there. There's a nervous system drop, and so people will be around you, and their nervous system will change. But there's an integration of curiosity. You have to love yourself, so love yourself too. There's acceptance that you have to have for things. Then just know that the words make a difference. So you have to be aware that the words make a difference. And energy can make ripples, and you don't know how far the ripples go when you make an energy or a word with somebody. But also, you have to let it drop into your subconscious and get into your being. And then you have to really decide on your purpose and decide, what the difference that you're going to make is going to be. So you have to stay present, but also understand and love yourself. But there's a form of commitment involved. So long story short, love is loving from a place of love.
yeah, and it's a level of acceptance, a deep level of acceptance, you know. When you're judging, you're not really coming from a place of love. There now again, discernment and judging are different,
Hmm.
right? So and words matter and they have energy to them. But acceptance is I think at as close to a simple definition of love as you can get.
So acceptance, sorry. So, all right, I got to have discernment, but that's not judging. So don't judge. Try and find discernment for acceptance.
Right.
And then that is love.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see, I think that is one of the ones where like we all have a different answer.
But where do you come out on that?
Well, I mean, like it's definitely I don't, that's tough. It's tough to follow. Like, not to say like you're wrong because like all of the pieces do seem correct because you're speaking from feeling, you're speaking from connection. You're speaking from how do you use the words to define a feeling? You know, it's nearly impossible to do because how do I express an energy? What do I tell you the energy means? Like, and this is a little Alan Watts on that one, but it's going to be tough to do because we're using a very limited system to explain an unlimited thing.
Well, it's interesting too, because when you say it's a feeling, I think that the feeling is a fruit on the from the tree of love, right? So if you're looking for the feeling of love, it doesn't come from that. It comes from a choice.
Yeah. So my definition, I have it right down here. Where is it? Let me find my answer key. There it is. So I had a definition for if I had to break down like what is love. This is more from like the mind and body side to it. So this isn't going to go spirit and heart side to it.
Mm.
So my definition on this one is word for word, like kind of necessary. Love is a made up personal belief of importance and value of a noun and a verb or verb. Now, word for word is pretty important here. First off, the reason why I say love is a made up personal belief is because what's the measurement unit?
Yeah.
What is it? What do I measure it in inches, feet, gallons, liters? Like, what's the measurement unit? Well, there is no measurement unit. It's one that I make up. So I love you. Well, how much? Is it 10? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? How much of what? I don't have a measurement. I just decide. So it's a feeling. There's
That
not a
is,
measurement.
you just nailed it, I think, right there. I
Oh,
decide.
not disagree. But everything is a choice. I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, no,
So
I mean, I'm just like, I'm listening. It's just amazing. Yeah.
and so it's a made up system. It's make believe. It's not a real system. It's made up. I just make it up as I go along. Well, made up based on what? It's made up based on value and importance. How do I say
Mhm.
I love my wife and I love my mom? Like, well, love which one more? Well, I love them this one and I love this one this way. And those are different, but a lot. So there's no really which one is better or worse or more or less. It's just a feeling and priorities. And do I love my dog more than my kids? It's like, well, I love them both, but different, like it's a made up system. But
Yeah.
they're all important. So, if I said, I love this coffee cup, but I could smash this cup and go on with my day. But if my dog gets hit by a car today, I'm going to be a little more sad. Higher value, higher importance.
Right.
People, place, and things. That's what a noun is. Verb is an action. So you can love skiing, which is an action. You can love hiking. You can love dancing. You can love whatever. That's doing. Yeah, I love that stuff. That's great. But what's your value or importance to it? I may love doing jet skiing, but I may hate, snow mountain climbing. It's miserable. I hate it. It's
Mhm.
like, well, some people love that and some people don't like the water, and so it's going to be a subjective belief I made up. It's all based on value and importance, though. People, place, and things. That's your nouns. I love that person. I love this place. I love this thing. That's
Right.
all based on this is how important it is to me. And so that's
Interesting.
my definition is importance and value.
Interesting. So I wonder if, and maybe I'm overcomplicating because I love the simplicity of what you just said. And
Mhm.
I see exact now I see so clearly how, what you were describing before of where we were coming from. But I wonder if in the in the definition of love or an activity or a place, that maybe we're using love to describe high levels of enjoyment.
That's part of it.
Right. Um, I mean, I don't know. Again, it is subjective, right?
It's
So
supposed to be. You're coming from
yeah,
the spirit side. I'm coming the other way. It's supposed to be different. If this was the same, I'd be blown away.
for sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, interesting. I love this.
The funny thing about it is both answers are correct.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's what's
Yeah.
interesting about it. This is why I take love off of the value sheet. I'm like, listen, everyone's got a completely different thing here, and you can't really explain it. Like
Right.
everyone's got to do. Let's go with something that I can actually create a boundary around because we're changing the rules constantly in this one. So, and also different relationships have a different level of rules. They're different things. Wife and husband is very different than best friend, and best friend is very different than mother and father. Like these are all different, but they're all still in the same category of I love.
Right. Oh, for
So,
sure.
so this is where it's interesting to where like, what does it mean? Like the simplicity view of it is it's something that's very important to you, and the level of importance is on a system I make up.
It's interesting. I mean, I have a quirky sense of humor too. So as you were
Easy.
saying, wife and best friend, I was like, well, it's almost like a set of cards, right? So if your wife is your best friend, then you have two cards of a flush, right? As opposed to I have a wife and a best friend, and then
Could be.
you still
Well, it's also complicated.
hold
The amount of
house.
pressure that puts on wife. Oof.
It's
Because
a
who do you
lot.
talk to for your best friend? Who do you go and vent to when wife can't handle? I think people are in relationships and they think that because you're in a relationship, they're a qualified therapist. And you can
No.
unload all of your negativity on somebody and vent, and that person is somehow capable to handle it.
Oh, no. That's how you destroy
Yeah,
everything.
be my best friend right now.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
but also you're wrapped up in my reassurance for safety and security. So the more you unload, you're not doing okay, and I can't rely on you, the less safe and secure I feel, which means instead of this being a conversation, it's turning into a condemnation of how I have to start taking care of things because you're not able to. So my entire system is about to fall apart. Thanks, best friend.
Well, I think also what happens is your world gets too small and you put too much pressure on one person. We're basically saying the same thing.
Yes, we are. We're agreeing aggressively, Jeffrey.
I love it. Well, we're passionately having fun here. So yeah, but it's even your best friend is not qualified. You
Right.
know, they have their own set of experiences and their perspective. And certainly there's value that they bring. And even therapists, don't know everything. So, at the end of the day, all roads stop at you, and other perspectives certainly help. Your best friend provides something your therapist can't. Your therapist provides something your best friend and your wife can't. And they should be all used sparingly and accordingly.
hmm Yeah, it's a tough game though, but if you start going, my best friend is my wife and I'm completely isolated and it's just us two, so much you put on somebody, so much
Oh,
pressure.
oh, that's a lot.
It's
That's
a
a
lot.
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah,
Well, we
we call it love though. I call it love.
well, what's interesting is we've gotten in society, it's gotten smaller and smaller. It's
Ironically, why do you say that?
well, people have almost disconnected with the connection of the internet, number one. Number two, as people age, they become their circle becomes smaller and smaller.
hmm
Uh, and and also in if by gender, the male circle becomes smaller and smaller versus females are much more actively connecting and maintaining relationships in one way or another and more social and more expressive. I mean, women, this when men or boys and girls are younger, women are socialized to speak about their emotions and how they feel, and guys are like, well, let's go work it out. Let's, go play ball or do something else, or, like just it's very different. And so what happens is, like anything, you develop vocabulary. And the deeper your vocabulary, the more you're able to express and understand, and your emotional IQ starts to go up, right? Because you have an awareness of who you are, because you are in these relationships that reflect that emotionality back, and other people around you also are expressing themselves emotionally and teaching you that way too. So, it's a trajectory of two things. I can't necessarily say. I think society in general is getting smaller, the groups of and then as you get older, and then also men have a smaller and smaller group of people that they rely on and are connected to.
That's this is a good way to go. I got a few things to go in this one. I like that you said that you think that things are getting smaller for us, even though our reach has never been farther. Right
Right.
now, I don't even know where you're at. What state are you even in?
Well, I'm in Mexico.
Yeah.
This is Mexico. I'm in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. I know, right?
You're in Mexico. I'm up in Illinois. I'm in America. So
Okay.
we're in different parts of the world,
Right.
yet we can still connect. So our reach has never been further. Our reach has never, it used to be just community. It could be your school, it could be your work, it could be your town. It used to be community. Well,
Mm.
well, now I can reach globally. So it's funny that my network would be
Reach and
smaller
community.
when I can reach further.
Right. Difference between reach and community, community being more intimate and reach being more broad.
Interesting you say that because my Zoom calls that I have with guys, if we've gone into war together over Zoom, and when I see these guys in person, it's like we've known each other for years, even though it may be the first time we meet. So is reach not able to have community?
Oh, no, no, no. They can definitely both coexist. And there is a movement, I believe, more among men that are men groups and connecting and supporting because it's well needed. It's
It's very,
needed.
very needed. That's why I
Yes.
built one.
Yes. Yes. So I'm in several. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is where it's needed because there isn't a, and also healthy wise, it's not healthy. Some of it's only one sided and leaves guys stranded. So this is the different
Well,
part is like,
yeah, your relationships extend your lifespan, that intimacy, it actually the less intimacy that you have can be like smoking cigarettes,
mhm,
right? It actually impacts your longevity, it impacts your happiness, it impacts your health.
yeah, which unless we got a couple words here we're dropping, we may have to work on. All right, so Um, let's keep going. The circle becomes smaller. Sometimes for women, they seek more community. Ironically, in my house, it's the opposite way. My Andrea, my girl, she is a type 3 Enneagram, which means she's the achiever type, workaholic, and her
Mm.
value comes from achievement. She's working through because her heart side is repressed. Friendship is not as important to her. She has people that they like and they're friends or their work friends or associates, but best friend or go hang out with friends, it seems like it's in the way, not a thing that she likes to do. I'm the other way. I have a huge community of guys. I have a huge community of people, and I'm talking with people every day. My connections and my networks are very vast and different.
Right.
Yet, this is where I actively try to pursue. It's almost like we have a role reversal from what you said, like the gender norm. Our household is different, where usually she would be like, well, as the guy, they're more isolated and do it on their own. And the female would cultivate the acceptance aspect of, I want to be a part of the social group. I want to be a part of the group that connects and looks out for each other and we belong. It's ironic
Right.
that we flip-flopped it in this house. Our way is opposite. So I think that that's a fun way to do it. But do we need community? Guys have never been stronger than when we're together, and we do
Oh,
need that because, like, for a lot of the conversations, this is why I challenge, and I have women's groups. Don't think this is a sexist thing. I have women's groups. Women have a hard time with the truth. That's why there's so much with their truth.
right.
And this is where it goes into the part where I change the story to match what I want it to be, not accepting what it is. And denial is at the core of almost every woman's curses. It's one of the
Mm,
toughest curses to break, too, because it becomes their protection system. It's the makeup, it's the persona, it's the mask, it's the I'm a boss bitch. It's all the stuff that isn't true that becomes the persona to make it so I can thrive, even though it's inauthentic. So
right.
when you start going into, well, the truth is this, they're like, I don't want to handle that. I'm gonna drudge that. I'm gonna put that down. I'm gonna attack that. I'm gonna rip it apart. I'm gonna retreat. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna burn this relationship. The truth is very difficult. And so whenever you're starting to go through with the acceptance aspect, guys have a lot easier time with going like, the shame stack is real tough for guys. And so like, I'm not trying to get in denial. A lot of times they're stuck in anger. You talk
Mm,
often about the how women are able to share their emotions, and they learn that they are always able to express the emotion. It's okay. Let it. You can cry. You can have all your emotions. It's okay, princess. It's okay, right?
right.
But then guys suppress, shut it down, man up. Don't be a bitch. Stop crying. Handle your business. Do your stuff. Every guy knows this. I haven't met a guy yet who's like, wait, you guys haven't been expressing your feelings? Like every guy's like, we all have to push it down. We have to, not just because of society, because that's what women do with guys. Every guy has a story of when I've let the tears flow, I've gotten rejected. I've been dumped. I've been let go. I got friend zoned by my wife. Like it's like you can only have two stoic tears. You can't
Mhm.
ugly face cry and fall apart because then I can't find reassurance. My hypergamy system will kick in. And if you are not stable, strong, my rock, able to sustain or support or protect or
Creating
provide or
safety.
preside, yeah, if you
Right.
don't create the safety security, if you are not my safe place, well, then I need to figure this shit out because I am no longer okay. And he's like, no, I just had a really tough moment, a human moment. And they're like, yeah, but I can no longer invest in you as for my safety and security. I can't do it anymore.
Mhm.
I have watched good men. listen to their women who read a fucking meme or saw some bullshit that was like, men should be able to cry openly. And the guy's like, fuck, that doesn't seem like it works, but I'll do it. And then do it. And then they end up having to sleep in separate rooms. And then within a year or two, they've getting a divorce and she's dating the guy at the office. And these are the
Wow.
good guys, the guys who are not abusive, not shitty dudes, guys who are like, I just don't know if I can show that soft side. And if they
Sure.
did, they were rejected.
Right,
It's like,
right,
hold on a second. You couldn't handle the truth of this guy's a human. You couldn't handle that. You went into protection by destroy the relationship so you could have the subjective better when really you had a great one, but you didn't know how to handle it.
right,
And so this is the part where, of course, there's resentment from men. Women are taught to express, guys have to suppress. But if you do show it in anything except for, of course, anger, which gets shunned later, anger is the only way we're allowed to show it to at least give a false sense of confidence. He's loud, so he must know what he wants. He's aggressive and making himself bigger. He must be able to protect me. He doesn't take shit from nobody. That bad boy is a good guy. Like, slow down here. This is a front to make it. We don't know how to deal. And so a
right,
lot of times, because and I'm with you, less than 5 times crying until I could learn the hard side, which you're right, which is a totally different monster, by the way, until you can crack through that thing and you don't know the suppression or the repression that you've had, until you can crack through it. I didn't have any of those pieces. So I would just take all of the sadness, convert it to anger, convert anger to motivation, motivation to work out to fitness progress. And now I'm a fucking beast. That's my outlet. Outlet is workout, bro. That's what I do. This
right,
way, I can be a pack leader who doesn't let the Hulk out on my pack. But if I don't work out long enough, the Hulk gets closer to the surface. But not because I'm angry, it's because I'm so sad that I'm pumping all the sadness into anger because it's suppressed. And so
hmm,
that anger becomes the first trigger because it looks confident, it gets respect. Ladies can still choose you because you look like you can protect, but it's
right,
really a mask and a gamble of separation. It keeps people further away because, it's cool when you're beating up the bad guy at the bar, not cool when you're raging at your pack, hurting your kids and your wife.
right.
So it's like, how do I find the balance if my entire system is to convert all emotion into anger, and then even that is bad? Then what do I have? Be the rock? I need to be the rock for this relationship. Well, Jeffrey, what emotions do rocks have?
Stoicism.
Well,
Yeah,
I wish stoicism, because stoicism is at least still addressing some humanity. A rock
sure,
has no emotions at all.
for sure. Yeah, and
So am
and
I a statue or am I a person?
I definitely felt that a lot. That I felt that there were. I was like, so two things. One is, as we're talking, obviously there are, 8 billion people on the planet. There's a lot of different experiences, right? There's,
Sure.
things changing and trends and men's movements that weren't here, 20 years ago and things like that, right? But I definitely felt very consciously when I was in my 20s that there just wasn't any space for any feeling. And that if I were to connect to that or let that out, that everything would come crashing down. Relationships, even my drive for success. And, so as I was referring back to, when my heart cracked open, what that essentially did, that moment happened. But what it did was it just made more space. So in that space, I had choice, right? So I could choose. Is anger is a valid choice sometimes. It's a very valid choice sometimes. And I wasn't making that choice at that time. That was, I had, one color on my palette and everything's red. So, I can make choice. I have an emotion. I can choose how to release that. I can, feel that, and I don't have to fall into a puddle, nor do I have to explode like a nuclear bomb. I can simply just breathe it and feel it, which is interesting because the actual emotion, the physiology of it, can pass through your body in 90 seconds. That energy you can just breathe through in 90 seconds. It stays alive with your thinking. I can't believe they did that. I can't do that. They can't get away with that. And, it just gets bigger and bigger. But the actual energy, that's gone in 90 seconds. You decide to stoke the fire or not.
Yeah, this is where we do a lot of awareness training on these things. I like that you said that, like, when you were doing your system for I can't have feelings meant I didn't have a choice there. I wasn't even noticing. That's the awareness piece. If you created a coping mechanism of suppression, which is denial, I created a denial system to make it so I can get through tough times. Suppression leads to expression. You're going to at some point explode. The volcano will eventually overflow. It's going to happen. This is the coping mechanism you're using is to suppress your heart. Bro, you and me both. I'm right there with you. I just unlocked this thing a couple months ago. Totally different planet. It's like they turned colors on. It's nuts. So I'm totally agreeing with you. Completely agreeing with you. Remember, I'm warrior side. Heart side is
Right,
my most repressed. So
right,
mind side, psychology, philosophy, I'll go for days. Warrior side, action side, perseverance. Don't quit. Keep going. Let's do it. Let's figure it out. How you going to handle it? That's me. This is my side. Spirituality, I opened up 2 years ago. I do not judge people's journeys. Like, I'm like,
right.
I didn't even crack that piece until I was 39. So I can't give people shit when they're 28. I'm like, you're a decade ahead of me. Like, so I'm like, I couldn't even do that. I just cracked heart side. Thank you, psilocybin. I just cracked heart side just a couple months ago, and it opened up a whole planet, but it's volatile because it's the most damage I have in my entire system is heart side. That's why it was repressed to begin with. So
Right.
the
Same.
volcano became something very interesting, and this is where I think you'll find this fascinating. My entire success system for strength, power, protection, working out, motivation was to take the suppression of sadness and convert it. Well, what happens when you open heart side and now you've learned a new outlet? Now I can cry. I can cry now. I've cried more in the last 2 months than I have in the last 20 years. I'm like, there's a whole thing now that's an outlet. Now, I'm not walking around going like, "Oh." Listen, sort it out in the shower. You can't tell what the tears are. I don't care how you do it. But like, there's an outlet.
Yeah.
I could do a thing. There's a thing that wasn't there. Well, here's what happened. That was bananas. As soon as I started doing a brand new outlet, a whole new level got opened up, and I started doing a whole new system, my workouts turned to shit.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. Exactly.
The whole
Yes.
system needed to be rewired. I opened up a whole new category. So I
Right.
had to take the next month of rewiring, not move away from pain and not trying to manage the Hulk because the Hulk wasn't even close to the surface anymore. I didn't need to do a powder keg release of steam just to survive because the steam wasn't built up the same when I had a whole other outlet. So then I had to change my entire system, which was built on move away from pain into move towards pleasure. Completely opposite, totally
Oh,
different. So to
yeah.
be able to switch systems here, high level of awareness. Thank God I've already done so much work in three sides to open this one up. It's going quickly, but it's like
Right.
totally. It's like an English professor learning French. You're like, can I just use some English stuff here? You're like, no, it's French. Learn the new language. We're like, well, I've learned three languages. Let's do it. So that's kind of where it is. But I had to rewire my system. Now I work out for pleasure. Totally different. I didn't count reps. I'd put heavy weight on, but I wouldn't count the weight or how many reps it was because I wasn't going towards progress at first. I just wanted to feel
Right.
the blood pump, feel the muscle work, feel it. And it started like very different feeling. Like I started feeling very different. But
Yeah.
then I also had to start satiating the part of myself that does require growth as one of my main values. Growth is one of my main ones. And so I still had to evolve, in which case combining motivation of move towards progress with the move towards pleasure. Totally different than move away from pain because move away from pain is a limit. Once you're in comfort, you slow down. But move towards pleasure and move towards progress means keep going.
Right.
Flip my whole system.
I relate to everything that you say, and I absolutely experienced all of it. it's interesting. So when and it reminds me of when I was looking at who am I, right? And part of why that came up was this realization of I am so, there's such a fire, almost like an anger at the whatever system things that, trauma, all of it, right? That I was pushing against things. I was rebellious. And what I realized was that didn't exist as an identity, because if the thing that I was pushing against disappeared, I would be gone. There was nothing there. I was just against the thing that I disagreed with. So I was like, where am I? So I removed that, and then I was like, who's this person who's pushing against? Like, what does that stand for? Because I got to stand for something, not against something. Standing against something may also result from standing for something, but if I haven't made that choice of what I actually stand for, then when those other things, when my circumstances change, my geography changes, the people around me change, or whatever changes, then I've got nothing to push against.
Yeah, whenever I do that, I call it the resistance. I say the resistance lighthouse. People go like, "Oh, there's resistance. I don't like it. I don't like it." And then the coping mechanism, whether it's retreat, negotiate, attack, or it gets into surrender and run away or whatever it is. When it gets into the parts where there's a resistance and I don't like it, I don't like it. I call that the lighthouse. And people try to go away from the light. I'm like, there's resistance. Go toward. Let's go
Mm,
find what's in there. What's happening? What are we avoiding right now? Let's go dig in. Let's go get messy. Let's figure it out.
mm,
We may find a curse, some
okay.
generational curse. You may find one. You may find a demon in there, something that's been haunting you for years. You may find a dragon, something that destroys your whole village and ruins your life. We don't know what's in there, but let's go find it.
Mm,
And so this is where it gets really exciting. I look at resistance as a lighthouse. Go toward. That's where you do the work. You just
okay.
found there's resistance. That's where you need to work. You found it.
Sure.
Good. Let's go toward. I want to go back into anger a little bit. There's three
Mm.
parts to anger. Do you know the three sections to anger that make it so people get triggered in that department to find acceptance? Right?
What was the question?
What are the three parts that make it so people get angry? There's three categories.
Oh, I don't know the specifics that you're relating to, but
Let's do it.
anger, yeah, anger in my head is usually a lack of acceptance of what is currently occurring,
That's
right?
denial. That's denial. That's not the same. Anger and denial work in the same. They work in the same office, but they're not the same thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Okay. Okay.
anger runs into three categories. Anger runs into either something is taken or something has been lost. This is the first
Mhm.
category. If somebody takes your
Right.
things, you're gonna get pissed off. Or if something is lost, you get angry. Where the fuck is it? Like you. That's the first category. Second one is unfair or unjust. That's just wrong. That's not fair. Like that gets people very heated up very quickly. And then the last one is unmet needs. And this is the more personal relationships when there's something that you need that is not being met. This is most likely relationship oriented. And so when
Mm,
you see these categories of something's not happening, well, did somebody take something from you? It's not always a thing. It could be your dignity, it could be your respect, it could be your honor. It could be somebody took your position, it could be something, and
mm,
like, oh, damn, something was taken. You lost something. This is when it gets to death, identity, relationship. There's something that was lost that makes me so angry.
mm.
It could be a
Interesting.
court case. It doesn't
So,
matter what it is.
so
Then
it's
you get
fascinating. As I'm listening to you, I'm hearing, I again am seeing the difference in our places, because I still see something gets taken as I'm not accepting the fact that something was taken, so I'm pissed off that that's just actually what happened.
you know which sphere the anger is in, though. I'm going to share something with you. I think you're going to like
Yeah,
this. This is a high level training. This is the
sure.
tool that I built that I've run through this with PhDs and multiple authors. This is
Uh-huh.
the way that our human brain operates. This is how we work as people. So,
Uh-huh.
you're talking about anger is right here. Anger
Right.
is part of our loss system. When you're
Right.
saying anger is just a lack of acceptance, you're not wrong because when you're going through loss, you have to race to acceptance. Now, people think that race to acceptance means go fast. No, it just means the finish line is to accept.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm agreeing with you, but most people don't know that if I'm angry, it's because there's something in our loss system that's triggered. If you're caught
Which,
in your loss system, you'll go through denial. You'll go through bargaining. You'll go through depression. You'll go back to anger, back to denial, back to depression. And you'll be bouncing around in here. That's why they're all connected. You'll be bouncing
sure,
around in here until you can find in each section acceptance.
right.
If you don't find it, which you're not wrong, this is again, we're not disagreeing.
Yeah, no,
Without
no, it's
acceptance, you
fascinating.
stay
I
in
love
here.
how we're both in this. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
well, I
fascinating.
mean, if we're good at it, you're going to find commonalities, and so this is why it
Yeah.
makes sense. Well, this all works through your feelings section. Well, feelings, while it is one of our core three to make it so this is one of our strongest parts, it's also the weakest part
Mm,
because this is the way that the enemy within will get within inside of you. That's your fear, your excuses, your doubt, and your distractions. It's also when this is turned on, it gives a green light to each one of these to come in through your creativity or imagination, through your fear, through negative emotions, which is excuses if you're exposed. Doubt attacks right through your motivation and the things that you want most. And then
mm,
distractions, which is a nasty one, comes in through what you want. Distractions comes in for whatever you want the most of. I'm going to give you the most. This is why in the Bible, the devil is most commonly using this one. Whatever you want, I'll give you an abundance of. Is the nasty ones. You want to see a fun thing? If you're caught in your loss system and you're running through a difficult time and you can't sort out, I can't believe this is my reality. I can't believe this is happening to me. I don't even want to deal with it. I'm gonna retreat. I'm gonna hide. I'm gonna suppress. I'm just gonna push it down. I don't want to go through that feeling. I don't want to do it. Well, if you're in denial, denial pairs up with distractions, and
mm,
distractions tries to take the one thing that you don't necessarily want to give, but you give it away for fun and pleasure. And it's your purpose, it's your life, it's your time. I give it. I just give it away freely. Pick a card. I'm going to distract you. I'm going to give you something that makes you feel good for a minute. Well, let's look at some of the things that if I don't want to deal with my reality and I want to distract myself, well, what things make it so if I don't want to deal with the pain of this, I'm going to do? Well, name a country song that doesn't end up at a bar.
right, right.
Name it, it's going to go right to drinking, fellas. Girls goes to eating often. I'm gonna
Mm,
go because women have 3 times more taste buds than boys, and so they go to eating. I want the sugar rush. I'm gonna eat a whole tub of ice cream, or I'm gonna do something. Women will go more commonly eating. Not always. There's always people can go back and forth, but commonly it's gonna be drinking to numb the pain because it hurts too much, and so I just want to feel good. This goes for any type of pleasure thing. It could be anything from prescription meds, too much Netflix, social media, porn, you name it. We can put it in this category because it's all things that are supposed to make you feel good. So I'm
it's
going to
dopamine
protect
involved.
myself. I
Yeah.
protect myself from not dealing with the reality. I'm at the war with what is, combined with anything to make me feel good. Denial and distractions is the recipe for addiction. And when
Mm,
people start doing identity work with like, we need to just go to identity, identity's on the other side of the map, bro. If we don't get into the thing that we're denying, you can do identity work, but your belief system will not address the feeling that you have about the loss that you're not sorting out. In which case, you're going to end up staying in the addictive state because you never actually got rid of the root. You're just
right,
dealing with symptoms. And this is
right,
where people are wrong. It
right.
doesn't work. But if we can go in, teach you how to manage your loss system, which anger is one of them, you're in a loss. There's something happening, in which case you get to the acceptance, truly, not deny. I'm in acceptance, but I didn't do the other three. You go through each. Once you get to acceptance, you can address the way you feel about this. And make sure if any enemy within has got a green light, we fight it. You got to beat these. These are not you. They're all beatable though, beatable quickly if you can catch them. It's all awareness on this. Then you can rewire the belief system to address the identity of your habits, your behaviors, your patterns, your purpose, your title, who you are. Without going through the correct steps though, you stay stuck forever because your loss becomes the feelings that you have that shape your belief system that makes you live a life through your identity. We got to go to denial. Otherwise, we'll never get anything done then. And this is where I've done this, where I have people do their videos of like, hey, here's this guy's story. And I'm like, where are they on the map? Because if you find where they are and we can get to the root, then we can address the core issue to make it so all of the things we're doing to suppress some sort of symptom is no longer necessary. You don't have to medicate if the problem isn't there anymore.
For sure, for sure. Yeah.
So I figured you'd like this because we're talking about where is anger? Anger is in loss. Well, if
Yeah,
you're going to get into something that was taken, something lost, something is injustice, or something is wrong, something is unfair, or there's an unmet need, I'm going to go into where I need to get acceptance in this category. But this
right.
also means most likely there's going to be bargaining, denial, and depression triggered at the same time. And if you don't recognize I'm in my loss system, you will be in here for your whole life.
It's a piece of the maze that you just get lost in the loop. Yep.
If you, but if you don't have awareness or any training that that's where you are, you'll be
Mhm.
just spinning in a circle for a very long time and call it who you are.
Right. Fascinating. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, pretty fun. That's my listen. I wish I could take full credit for it. Real talk. And once I opened Spirit Side up and I became more open to Spirit Side, I built this at 3:30 in the morning. God woke me up and said, "Make circles."
Yeah.
This is why when I send this to authors, I send it to PhDs, I send it to psychologists, I send this to some of the best. Anthony Dom Jones is a friend of mine. He's written 6 psychology books. He's been doing it for 40 years. When him and I
Right.
are talking, he's like, it's crazy how far you are. He's like, I sent this to him. I said, break it apart. He was like, the only ones I don't see on here is trust, and I'm looking for this one and balance. And I'm like, well, trust is going to be in needs, and then balance is going to be in beliefs. And he's like, okay, well, I can see why those are there. Okay. And so we started tearing it apart, and he's like, this is the best I've ever seen.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant. It is
Hmm.
brilliant. Yeah.
Pretty fun, though,
That's
right? So this is where I'm agreeing with you, but I'm on the other side.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And it's funny that you've taken this intellectual piece and you've gotten this download from the spiritual side
Hmm.
that you've been able to filter through with that grounding. Yeah,
It all fits together. This is why I do not like if I say, well, Jeffrey Davis does it in a different way than me. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, no, he's a master on this side, and
right,
we need all of them. So you come to me for these ones, you go to him for this one, you go to this person for that one. You need them all. Go to
right.
the masters of that thing. Nobody's
Yeah,
wrong. You gotta go to the right ones to get it done faster. And the reason they talk to you and the reason they talk to me is because in that side, we'll just save 20 years of figuring it out.
yes,
It's
yes.
not that you won't be able to do it. It's just we're gonna save you a whole bunch of years by going, yeah, I did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. But this works for across the board. If you just go this way, it saves you all the ones you don't have to do wrong. Just saved you 10 years. Work that way and you'll find yourself.
It's earned wisdom through big mistakes.
Correct, Amundo.
A
And some people
long,
have the gift and some people do not. In fact, most do not. And you've been
yeah.
in enough conventions just as I have. When I go to psychology conventions and I go to coaching conventions, you go to these groups, you do your talks, you do the stuff. I would probably be rounding up generously if I said 10% have the gift. Because a lot of
Hmm.
people read the books or have the knowledge or know the quotes or they read the brochures, they've gone through the programs, they have certifications or they have a degree of something, but they never actually did the journey into hell. They just read about it.
Right,
And if you grew up there, like I make an analogy very commonly where we should be challenging everything as a warrior. Your warrior type is the part that goes, why, why, why,
right.
why? I need to know more, not because I'm being a dick, but because I'm very curious to understand. I
Right.
want to know. Like you said, that's interesting. Why? Like I want to get in.
What you're just saying, right? It's like that is the why is to truly get to the truth, which is the what is
Hmm.
it's what I call it, right?
We got to
So
fight
the what
denial
is,
nasty. Yeah.
yeah, that's just the truth. And if you don't ask those questions and go 7 levels deep, you're not going to get there, right? Because the
Yep.
first answer is just the fluff answer. The second answer is the cover my back answer, and the third answer is kind of I'm digging a little bit, and the fourth answer is really where we start to actually look,
Yeah, you'll start to get until you get down to the last answer, which is usually only a word or a couple words. It'll end
right?
up being hope, or it'll end up becoming purpose, or it'll end up becoming something like what's at the bottom of it, connection. And this is where you'll find a core reason, a core purpose, a core value, a core thing. And you're like, damn, I really dug down until the DNA gets to like one word.
Right.
Yeah, and you're like, whoa. And it's a word that like shakes your soul. You're like, whoa, That's
Well, you're
my word.
tapping into the resonance of that, right? The rest of it is just fluff and packed on top, and at the bottom is this glowing, resonant word.
Yep. And you feel then you're like, this is crazy. I'm feeling what?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
supposed to be logic, but it's just you had to use the logic, then get your warrior in there to challenge, and then you had to get in there to find and be open to the spirit to be able to fill you with what's needed, and then you have to find the word that you feel. Oh my God, I'm connected to. They're all working together. But if we're like, I'm suppressing my heart and the spirit side is stupid, it's just logic. I'm like, where'd you get stuck?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're stuck at where like you're only at the third question. Of course you are,
Sure. Right.
because you're
That's
negating the feelings. Of course.
right. That's where the defensiveness and the anger comes up. Let's go a little further, right? The
Well,
closer we get to the truth, the first the defense comes up, and then it starts to, okay, okay, I give up. Okay, here, I'm here for you.
yeah. Well, excuses hates being challenged. The
Yeah.
best lies are 95% true, and
Right.
so excuses hates it when you start digging in. They want you just to accept the first answer. It's because I want to feel better. It's like, well, what do you want to feel better for?
Right.
What the fuck? I just want to feel better. Leave it alone. They're like, well, what about you doesn't feel okay that you want to feel better? How about I don't want to answer this question would make me feel better?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this is where people start getting into excuses. You start seeing a defense, a deflection, some sort of reaction. But
The
this is also
Matrix.
why, if you get into my map, if you take the race to acceptance and turn it, it correlates exactly with the enemy that links up with it. So you go depression is linked in with distraction or with doubt. Fear is linked in with bargaining, excuses with anger, and denial with distractions. You'll start
Yeah.
seeing that these all fit together, but they also make it so they're all defeated in very similar ways. And if you can catch what they are and learn the training, they get beatable. And when I tell people that depression is beatable, if I tell people anxiety beatable, I'll tell you it's a step by step. I've got you, and it keeps
Mhm,
on working like
mhm.
challenge accepted. And this is where I say you should be challenged, Jeffrey. I should be challenged. Are we
Sure,
really worth our salt?
for
We
sure.
should be challenged. We should be.
Right.
And I encourage the warrior in all of us to go like, are you really good at this? I got questions. And like, bring those questions, please.
Right.
And then you'll hear people and you'll say, well, that's interesting. That's just me getting into it. But one thing for the ladies out there, if they're wondering why their guy is so suppressed and getting into anger, and why when he gets so mad instead of being sad, it's because anger is how we cry.
Hmm. Interesting. I haven't heard that before. That is actually that resonates.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, when a guy is having an outburst like this, you're looking at someone who's sad.
Oh, for sure. For
Hmm.
sure.
That's how we cry.
If that's apparent. The anger is how someone cries is just a fascinating way of stating the obvious, but
Mhm.
it's just so,
Simplicity is genius. That's my entire foundation. Is how do I make something extremely complex one sentence?
hmm. I love it. I resonate with that for sure. Yeah.
Mhm. So pretty cool stuff, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. This has been a fun conversation.
It's been fantastic. I really appreciate you and what you're up to in the world, and I see the value, and I'm glad I met you.
Yeah, I'm glad I met you too, man. Let's keep doing this. This is cool to know more guys on the spirit side. I like that. Like I see, like I did the call before this was a body side warrior, so it was very cool to meet like the different masteries and different sides. One of my best friends, Les McDaniels, he's a heart side warrior. He's strong in my weakest part, and so those conversations are fascinating because I'm like, that's my most repressed, and I need to learn more levels. He's like, oh, I see where you're at. Yeah, you got to do this next, and I'm like, oh, that sounds terrible. He's like, it is. Go for it. I'm like, okay, let's go.
Uh, uh, yeah, it's fascinating because there's a lot of parallels from where we came from, and I absolutely understand a lot of where you're coming from, and it's almost like you've dug down deep, and I've chased another rabbit, you know.
Oh yeah, every level is a new devil, bro.
And yeah, for sure.
It's pretty fun. If you can send out, if there's two things here. First off, if you can send out any message to say this is my core piece, and then how do they get to you? I would love to hear everybody listening. If What's your message, and then how do they reach you?
Sure. My message is that, my message is two things in one sentence, is that you are fully responsible for your experience, and you can change that at any point in time to make it more loving, to make it more fun, to make it more magical. So that
It's
is absolutely,
empowering.
yeah, right? Well, it's true. It's
Hmm.
true.
That's awesome. And
Uh,
then how do they find you, Jeffrey? Where can they have their own inspiring breakthrough? How do they get to you?
so I'm on all the socials, on LinkedIn or Facebook, or all Jeffrey Davis, Jeffery Davis. So whatever happens to be your social of choice, if it's Instagram or any of those, I'm on. So I'm easy to find. Jeffrey Davis Coach on all of them.
Awesome. And they're looking for, they can get in service with you. They can hire you. They can work in either a group or a setting or a one-on-one. You've got options, right?
Yeah. So right now I've just been doing one-on-ones. So deep dive intensives that have been over the course of half a year. So we do transformational work, a lot of the work that you're referring to from slightly different angles, and I also include in San Miguel, which is interestingly enough. So here's a story about San Miguel. So I listening for those and not taking the hard hits, is I got a message to go to San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, which I didn't know anything about. And my initial search on San Miguel de Allende was provided information that my mind said, I don't want to go there. That's, I definitely don't want to go there. That's not my place, because a lot of expats and a couple other things. I was like, why don't I go to Mexico for that? But I just said yes. I came down here, and after I got here, it made total sense, because I've had clients who, as part of the program, come down here and work with me for 3 days. It's called the Heart of Mexico. The work that we do is integrating the heart, right? I didn't know that before I got here. It's also built on rose quartz, which is activating for the heart. And it has a very specific energy because of it. And it's a city that's been voted the best small city in the world 6 times. Last year, I'm not saying it's because I moved here, but they had never been voted this before. Last year it was voted as the friendliest city in the world. So, and I moved here half a year before that. So I'm just saying, just, whatever, however you want to draw that straight line or not. And
Uh,
it's a historic city. So there's cobblestone, and it's rooted in, it's got hot springs, and it's rooted in art. There's beautiful art all over the place, murals, and just it's got an amazing, amazing heart-centered, artistic, creative vibe that is transformational, and people just fall in love with it.
yeah, that sounds awesome, man. That's
Yeah,
wonderful. And like, kudos to you to having the courage to follow that purpose, find that thing. You're like, man, I'm supposed to go there. I don't know why, but I'm
right,
going for it.
right.
Awesome, man. That's fantastic. What a cool thing. I'm about to go get me some rose quartz and put it under my desk. Just sit on it all day because that
Yeah,
sounds wonderful. Very cool, man. I'm interested to have some more conversations. I do want next time, like, really to have you just really help people understand the value of the spirit and heart side, and
oh,
keep
that's
going. Like, I'd love to be able to have just more of this. I love being able to get the other side. I love being able to hear, like, 'cause I'm on this side of the mind body. This is where I live. This is my mastery, but the spirit heart, I'm still growing. And so I love hearing like masters on the other side. I love it. So if we can, let's work together. We'll send you an email and let's do another one.
I
Let's
would
do
love
some
to,
more.
man. This has been fantastic. I really enjoy you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you.
You got it, bud. Awesome. In that case, we'll be in touch. We'll do more in the future. Thank you, Jeffrey Davis.
My
And
brother.
I'll talk to you later, bud.
Thank you.